We're given f of x equals 2 tangent x divided by x. We want to find the derivative function f prime of x and f prime of pi divided by 4. Because our function is a quotient, and this quotient will not simplify, we'll have to apply the quotient rule to find the derivative function. Where the derivative of function f divided by function g with respect to x is equal to g times f prime minus f times g prime divided by g squared. So in our case, notice function f would be 2 tangent x, and function g would be x. So f prime of x will be equal to, starting in the numerator, we would have the denominator, which is x, times the derivative of the numerator, which would be the derivative of 2 tangent x with respect to x, and then minus the numerator, 2 tangent x, times the derivative of the denominator, the derivative of x with respect to x. We divide all of this by the denominator squared, which in our case would be x squared. And now we'll find the derivative here, and see if we can simplify. The denominator is still going to be x squared. The derivative of 2 tangent x would be 2 secant squared x. So this product would be 2x secant squared x. And then we have minus 2 tangent x times the derivative of x with respect to x, which would just be 1. Notice how we could factor a 2 out of the numerator, but we'll go ahead and leave the derivative function in this form here. So now that we have f prime of x, we can determine f prime of pi divided by 4, which would give us the slope of the tangent line at x equals pi over 4 radians. So f prime of pi over 4 would be equal to 2 times pi over 4 times secant squared pi over 4 minus 2 tangent pi over 4 divided by pi over 4 squared. Now we want to find the trig function value for secant squared pi over 4 and tangent pi over 4, and then simplify this. To find these trig function values, let's use a 45, 45, 90 right triangle given here, where if this is 45 degrees or pi over 4 radians, we can label the two legs with length 1 and the hypotenuse square root 2. Therefore, secant pi over 4 would be the ratio of the hypotenuse to the adjacent side, which would be square root 2 over 1, or just square root 2. Remember, the secant function is reciprocal of the cosine function. And then tangent pi over 4 would be the ratio of the opposite side to the adjacent side, which in this case would just be 1 divided by 1, or 1. So f prime of pi over 4 equals, well, 2 times pi over 4 would be pi over 2. So we have pi over 2 times square root 2 squared. Notice how this is secant squared pi over 4, which is secant pi over 4 times secant pi over 4. Then we have minus 2 times tangent pi over 4, which is 1, divided by pi over 4 squared, which would be pi squared over 16. So we have f prime of pi over 4 equals, here we have square root 2 squared, that's 2. Pi over 2 times 2 is just pi. So we have pi minus 2 divided by pi squared over 16. Let's continue simplifying this on the next slide. Instead of dividing by pi squared over 16, we'll multiply by the reciprocal. So we can write this as pi minus 2 over 1 times the reciprocal of pi squared over 16, which would be 16 over pi squared. So we can say the exact value of f prime of pi over 4 would be equal to 16 times pi minus 2 all over pi squared. To get a better idea of this value, let's also get a decimal approximation to 3 decimal places. the numerator in parentheses would be 16 times the quantity pi minus 2. So there's a numerator divided by second exponent brings up pi, and this is the squared key here. So it's approximately 1.851. Notice the 6 in the fourth decimal place indicates to round up. So approximately 1.851. But just be careful here. If the directions don't say round, we should give the exact value in this form here. But to check this graphically, we'll now take a look at the graph of the given function and the point on the function when x equals pi over 4 radians. If we sketch the tangent line at that point, the slope should be approximately 1.851. The function is graphed here in blue. Notice when x equals pi over 4 radians, this would be the point on the function. To find this corresponding y-coordinate, we'd have to substitute pi over 4 radians into the original function here. The red line is a tangent line at that point, and since f prime of pi over 4 radians was approximately 1.851, that would be the slope of the red tangent line. I hope you found this helpful.